Job interviewers of Reddit. What's the most stupid thing an interviewee ever said to you on a job interview? Story 1. I once asked a candidate a variant of the usual. What are some of your weaknesses? Questions. She responded with pass and firmly stared back at me. I will never forget her. And no, she did not get the job. Bonus. Another candidate once listed proficient in Internet Explorer on their resume. I won't forget that one, either. Story 2. She immediately started interviewing me. It was super weird. She just walked in and started asking so many questions I couldn't get a word in edgewise. And it wasn't like legitimate questions. She was quizzing me about things in the brochure to see if I knew the answers. The interview ended without me asking her a single question. To this day, I still wonder if I was on a candid camera episode that never aired. Story 3. I told him we would be getting back to him in a few days after we had a chance to check if he was insurable, made some calls to his contacts, and did a background check. Standard stuff. He got quiet. He asked if he could get real with me. Okay, that's when he took his shirt off. I was like, where's this going? He showed me some stab wounds that he got when he was a teenager, know what I'm saying, which is why he was on pain meds, know what I'm saying, which is why he got on laundry list of drugs, know what I'm saying, which is why he had his kids taken away a few years ago after a traffic stop, know what I'm saying. So if I found that stuff, that's why. Oh, and if I haven't gone to my court date for something that doesn't show up. Right, what is the court date for? They said I stole something from the last job I had, but I didn't. I praised his honesty, then moved on to the next interview. Story 4. My boss female, relevant in a sec, told me this story of a guy that showed up a little late to the interview with full-on gym clothes on and slams down a gallon jug on the table and says, sorry, I'm late. My girlfriend drives really slow. Women, right? My boss, do you want to try that again, him? Nah, they had to complete the entire interview due to the way our opportunity laws are, even though she knew she wasn't going to hire him. Story 5. I had a candidate tell me all of the ways he used to sneak off at his old job to avoid doing work. My favorite was the nap he took on the floor during normal business hours in the family restroom of his old job. Gotta love retail. Story 6. I asked the candidate what attracted him to this analytical marketing position. Him analytical to a fault. Even outside of work, he said I liked that answer. So I asked if he could go into more detail. When I go to a bar and I see a beer that is like 8 alcohol and another that is like 5 alcohol, I always choose the 8 one. Story 7. I was doing a phone technical interview, and I could hear the guy typing stuff as I was asking him questions. So I asked him something he should know, but isn't really something you could easily Google, clackety clack long pause, I don't know, I can't find on Google facepalm. Story 8. I, unfortunately, wasn't in the room for this, but we do an interview recap every night during recruiting, so I heard the story, and it still makes me laugh. Candidate was talking about work he did installing light poles with concrete bases composed of a new mix. When asked if they did any strength testing on the mix, he replied, well, no, but I kicked it really hard and it hurt, so it was strong. Story 9. Teacher here. Often on interview committees, as I'm a department chair, I have a ton of good or bad, depending on how you look for it stories, but this one stands out. First question was a standard tell us about yourself. Interviewee started talking about his mother's accolades and personality and continued for close to 5 minutes. Eventually, the principal cut him off to remind him that we were not interested in his mother's abilities. He apologized and immediately gave us information about himself, the usual, such as talking about going through a bad spot in college, dropping out, gaining a lot of weight, got up to 260 pounds, etc. Ended the question by reassuring us that he's okay now, because he's down to 187 now. In talking about classroom management, he said that he won't stand for disrespectful students. If they want to be disrespectful, they can just drop out. Interesting stands for someone trying to teach at a low-income, high dropout risk school. Story 10. Not an interview. But I once received a resume that was a legitimate 12 pages long. At first I rolled my eyes because resumes should be brief and concise. However, I was happy to discover that only 1 page was relevant information and the rest was a detailed explanation on how he had chosen to decorate his house. He ended the whole thing with the immortal line, I also like night hiking. That's hiking, but at night. Story 11. Once me and my partner were doing an interview together. She's very attractive and bubbly. The guy we were interviewing pointed this out to us, trying to be funny. Towards the end of the interview, he stated that if he got the job, he was most looking forward to being able to work with her. Story 12. Former interviewer. But now I work in onboarding and immigration. I always love that whenever I mention a background check is a part of the onboarding process. Everyone seems to take it as go ahead to reveal everything they've ever done that might even remotely show up on the check. I'm just sitting there letting them spill their guts and thinking TMI, TMI, TMI over and over again. Story 13. So we had an interviewee come in for the second round of interview. First was HR, second was my team lead, and me. Interview went well, very well, but we realized that HR did not fill up her expected salary portion on the paper. Anyway, my team lead asked her, what's her expected, and she gives quite a low number. My team lead says that she should try to ask for a higher pay, hint, hint. She says, oh, I just want to be accepted. I don't really care about the pay. I'm just using this company as a stepping stone in my career. Rejected. Story 14, well, Steve, I would be happy to offer you the position for XX pending the results of a drug screen. Oh, I didn't know there was a drug test. Is that going to be an issue? He may have not been told. I was the hiring manager, but department managers were supposed to bring it up in the first interview. And sometimes they didn't, yeah. I smoked weed before this interview. Can't blame the kid. Wasn't really a job that should have required a drug test, but it was policy. He didn't take the drug test. Also had an interviewee whip their phone out to answer a text right in front of me while I was in the middle of a question. The look on his face when he realized what he just did was priceless. I also took the fact that he looked shocked and embarrassed as a sign that he only grabbed his phone because he was nervous and wanted some comfort. I do it all the time in awkward social situations, so I actually hired him, and he ended up moving up into management. One of my prouder moments at that job, looking back. Story 15, I have a great story. I was managing a call center, outbound fundraising. This guy comes in and is really confident and cocky. He keeps telling me how great he is at sales. To drive this point home, he emphatically curses, I'm a great salesperson. I sell the out of it. Every day I'm the best. No bullshit. This goes on for 15 minutes. At the end of the interview, I said, thanks for your time. We won't be offering you the position. Long pause. And then he says, in all seriousness, was it all the cursing? I had a guy walking wearing a denim vest, jeans, and black fingerless gloves. Interview went okay, but he was super awkward. 10 minutes after the interview, his mom came in asking to speak with the sweet, pretty young lady who made her son feel so good about himself. Worst part, she was wearing a matching outfit, right down to the fingerless gloves. Story 16-0, just a heads up, if I have to do the drug test today, I probably won't pass. This was the second in-person interview after a phone conversation. He knew about this well in advance and had plenty of time to prepare. He didn't get the job. Story 17, I asked him if he had anything else to add to the interview before we finished. He shrugged and said him hung like a field mouse. You'll note that on your resume. Story 18, what makes you want a job in the field of computer science? My aunt is a programmer. Oh, that's cool. Did she inspire you in some way? No, not really. Story 19, it's not what he said, but what I read, I thought I saw writing on his eyelids. It turns out he had fuck you tattooed on his eyelids, and every time he blinked it can be seen. I stated this is a customer-facing role, and your you attitude is not going to work. He looked confused as I walked him out and thanked him for coming in. Story 20, I had one who asked, how long does this position last? It was for a permanent management track position. She wanted to make sure there would be enough time to have us pay for her certifications before she started her next semester. Turns out she lied about completing her degree as well. Story 21 interview was going fine, and I was going to hire him. Asked him if he had any holiday vacation booked for the upcoming year, and he handed me a list of dates already typed up and printed off. Most of the holidays were 2 months long each, and there were 9 of them. Some overlapped. I surmised from his list that he would probably be at work for 3 weeks in the entire year. When I told him this, he said, yeah, but you can't discriminate if I have holiday. You have to take me on and pay me for my time off. I asked him if he planned to quit after 1 year. He shrugged and said it's what I did in my old job. Needless to say, he got a letter of rejection. He replied, threatening to sue me. I ignored him, and he didn't. Story 22 had a woman tell me once I have some charges on my record, but they're no big deal at all. We didn't check records unless we felt we had a reason, a small company, and I had not asked her for details on anything other than her job experience. She had multiple pending drug and violent felonies, one only a month prior to the interview. We would have hired her and never known if she would have just applied the answer. If asked rule, edit word fix. Story 23, I worked for a staffing company and was interviewing a girl for an executive assistant position for one of our clients. Everything looked good on paper until I sat down with her and asked her to walk me through her resume. Now, if you understand how a staffing firm works, since candidates are interviewing with our firm in order to see if they are qualified for an actual interview for a position with our client, sometimes our interactions are a little less formal. Still wasn't expecting this. Can you walk me through your resume? Or what do you mean? Can you just tell me a little about yourself and go over your previous positions that you listed here? Her why? Everything you need to know is already on there. Okay. Well, the purpose of this interview is to get an idea on how you present your interrupts her. I can type fast. I can also type fast on my phone, without even looking. Okay, well, we can get into your skills in a little bit. Can you please describe your most recent position to me? Her, well, I made most of that stuff up. Nobody really checks that stuff anyway, Story 24, I interviewed a guy who said he was let go from his last job because he was staring at the women too long. He said it as if it happened, but he thought the outcome was unjust. He was interviewing for a position in a call center where a lot of the employees were young women. Hard pass on this guy, right? A week later, I noticed a car started following me home for a few days in a row. Both windows were tinted, but I thought the driver resembled a creeper. I really got scared when someone busted my car windshield with a brick one night. Lucky for me, my dad was a cop at that time. Called up my dad, gave him the guy's name, address from his application, phone number, description of the car following me. Everything. Dad said he would check it out. Turns out the guy had multiple restraining orders and a case for stalking. And the car I saw was his. He was also on probation. Dad called me up a couple of days later to say he wouldn't be bothering me anymore. Not sure exactly what happened. I suppose the less I know is best. I feel like this situation could have been a lot worse if my dad wasn't a cop. Story 25, my dad interviewed a guy and had to give him that "what is your biggest flaw" question, and the guy responded with "I fall asleep in meetings a lot." Story 26, after just telling them they failed the drug test, "Look, I was just in the same room as someone smoking pot. I didn't partake. They were positive for methamphetamine, oddly enough past marijuana." Story 27, mid-management level position. Very normal interview other than the guy's was a tad more outgoing and boisterous, but nothing that would disqualify him. Then he got on the subject of his hobbies and thought a good idea to send me a link to his blog about naked bike riding with plenty of photos. Story 28, worked at a company related to pet health, and we're interviewing interns. My boss, VP of Marketing, had a Rhodesian Ridgeback dog breed with a stripe of hair on the back that grows the opposite direction. For those who don't know, that he brought to work. She came into the interview with us, and this kid starts off with, "Whoa, what's wrong with your dog?" The interview proceeds, and we talk about what we do as a company, and this kid tells us, "My family never took our pets to the vet. When they got sick, we'll just take them out back and shoot them." Yeah, we didn't hire that guy. Story 29, I own a bar and grill. A standard question I ask bartenders is, which was your most least favorite job and why? One said they hated a corporate chain bartending job they had, but the fun part was when they figured out how to beat the measured pouring spouts. So they were bragging to a potential employer about ripping off a previous employer. Story 30, nothing major. But word to the wise, anything you say or that's on your resume is fair game. My company is in healthcare, so we asked the guy why he wants to work there, and among his answers was, and healthcare is a growing industry right now. We asked him to talk about a trend as a follow-up, and he could not do it. We didn't expect any knowledge of healthcare, but if you say something like that, you may get questioned on it. Story 31, I was pretty much the one who looked stupid. To be fair, I was like 19 to 20 and didn't know much about business or retail, so I applied at a store called La Senza. They sell bras, underwears, PJS, just your general girly store. Anyways, this girl knew her, obviously, since she was the manager. And things were okay, but I was nervous. Then she asked me a question along the lines of, what's the difference between selling to customers and marketing to customers? And that's when my bowels and stomach just intertwined together because I had no idea. I never dealt with that. I was young and immature. So I literally said, I was trying to answer the best I could. Then I said, "I'm sorry, I'm really nervous, and I really don't know what the answer." She was really nice about it. Obviously, I didn't get the job, but for the next couple of years, every time I went in, she was really nice and was like, "Hey," and it was just embarrassing, and I don't know why she was nice to me. I was going through a lot of anxiety and self-esteem issues at that time, so I was very bitter and would be like, why is she being nice? She didn't even hire me anyways. I understand business a little more, and now that it's like 6 years later, but at the time it was just embarrassing, lol. Story 32, I had an applicant texting through the entire interview. She never looked up from her phone until the end when I said, you can't have your phone on the floor during work hours. She looked up at me, rolled her eyes, and walked out. Story 33, we worked with an art contractor on a game for a year. We thought he did a great job and wanted to convert him to a full-time artist. Our process for interviewing full-time artists starts with the artist presenting their portfolio to a group of people and then going on a series of smaller interviews. So the interviewee dims the lights, starts his PowerPoint presentation, and proceeds to basically pretend he was the art director for the project we just shipped, takes credit for every artistic decision in the game for an hour. Eventually, the actual art director of the game turns the lights on and is like, "Dude, what are you doing?" The interviewee was like, "Oh, you're not supposed to be here. Our interview isn't until this afternoon." Needless to say, he did not get the job. His idiocy was especially annoying because he was a really good artist who had the job in the bag already. Story 34 was interviewing people for a technical customer service position at one of the big telecommunication companies. I had a lot of candidates with good customer service skills, but no relevant knowledge. I can deal with that. Customer service is hard to teach. Tech is pretty easy. I had a lot of candidates who had relevant skills, but no direct customer interaction experience. Okay, but more challenging than I had this one guy, no experience in tech, no experience in customer service, found a way to work every answer into how Jesus Christ was his personal savior and had saved his life and soul. Jesus did not get him the job. Story 35 me. So you work at your school computer lab. Him, yes. I take care of over 100 computers, me, great. What would you do to fix this computer broken scenario? Him, easy. I get yellow sticker and write broken on it. Me, what? Him, then the night shift guy comes over and fixes it. That's what I was trained to do, me. Story 36. Just the other day, I'm a very respectful person. I won't disrespect you unless you disrespect me. Then I'll definitely disrespect you. During a phone interview with a candidate, I ask about the lack of previous employer work information on her resume. It's hard to work and be a single mom. Me, I bet it is, but it looks like you have been out of high school for 8 years and only have 6 months total of work experience. Yeah, it is so hard to work and be a single mom. I've heard it is, but I've worked with other single mothers who work full-time and go to school, though. Those haven't lived my life and can't judge me. Do you want to come in for an interview? I have some dope new heels to wear. I forgot I had a meeting to attend, but I decall back to schedule a formal interview later. I'm another favor and cool with a background check. I smoke weed, but I have a prescription. Which reminds me, did you want to smoke a blunt with me in the parking lot after? Story 37. After an interview that went pretty well, he said, I know I'm pretty grossly unqualified for this position, but I appreciate you letting me interview. Could you give me some feedback on what I can do to be more qualified next time you have an opening? It was really kind and really respectful, but he was already in the final 3. After saying that, we compared his experience to the other candidates. He was a little less, but not significantly. But the moment he said that, his name was off the list with my peers. Story 38 nothing. She came in and literally said nothing the entire time. She wouldn't answer any questions or even respond. The only thing she did was nod her head when I asked if she was okay. I thought maybe she was having a medical emergency. Story 39 here is my time to shine. Best interview I ever conducted was with I Kill Pigs, not as her name. But it well makes sense later. I was working as a kitchen manager in Hawaii when a young man checking people in for interviews came back with a wild look in his eyes. We had a couple managers conducting interviews that day, but the guy who came in scared the bejesus out of everyone, and I was just tough dumb enough to sit with him. The guy wasn't very big, maybe only half my size, but he was scrappy and tweaking extra hard, shaking the table, bouncing the chair, and grinding his jaw so hard that if he even had any teeth left they would be missing. I grab his application and saddle up across the table to chat with him. Glancing at his app, he had 2 jobs at tuna boat and agricultural co-op. The tuna boat reason for leaving was something scribbled extra angry that I couldn't make it, so I asked him about that first. So what happened with the boat? Simple question, but it set him OFF. He stood up and started pacing. He starts it with duck that guy. Man, duck him, obviously not actually talking about waterfowl, but I am on mobile, and the correct makes it understandable, and I find it adds to the absurdity of the situation. I go out on that boat all day, and we don't catch nothing, man. Then when we get back, and I'm all like, all right, give me my money. And he starts giving me this bull about we didn't catch no fish, there's no money for you. So I'm all like, duck that. I was on that boat, so you give me money or ill. Ducking stab you and burn your boat. And he gave me money, but says he don't want me coming and fishing no more, yes. The formatting of that last sentence was terrible. That is just like I remember, and it was confusing for me as well. So this way you, dear reader, can get to better experience the event. So rather than agitate him further, as we're still in the dining room with some guests and other applicants looking on in horror, I quickly changed the subject. Next job was the agricultural co-op. So I move on to that, and it gets him quick bolted to the chair. This is better. All right, tell me about the co-op. What do you do there? He gets this wild look in his eye and answers with a sickly grin, I kill pigs. I just let him continue. Yeah, they get these pigs, we grab him, throw them up on this hook, and I duck and gut him. Yet drag that knife all the way down on, pull everything out of them while they squeal, all the while licking his lips and smiling that toothless beetle nut grin. Wow, that sounds awesome. So why do you want to leave there is all I can muster. Nah, man, I ain't gonna leave there. I love it there, but they don't pay me, so I need a second job. So how much are you gonna pay me? I haven't offered you a job yet, man. Why the not? So I roll straight into the DQ language. If we decide to move forward, we will call you within 24 hours. Otherwise, we have moved on with a different applicant. No, man, duck that. I've been here spending all this time. Give me a job. At that point, he started to stand up. So did I. I'm not the biggest guy, but I can be pretty darn imposing, and that usually quiets most people up. But this guy ain't most people. Man, you better be giving me a job. What you're going to do, all I got to maintain any professionalism and control, is to repeat my earlier. If we decide to move forward, we will call you within 24 hours. Otherwise, we have moved on with a different applicant. At this point, homie ain't getting it, and gets up in my face repeating that I will regret it off. He don't get this job. At this point, a small crowd had gathered, and our staff being a bunch of former military and Samoans, this guy finally looks around and sidles his bare feet out the front door, hurling insults and threats the whole way. TLDR, no. He doesn't get the job. Story 40, my school has a large amount of Native American students. We asked, why do you want to work here? She responds, my ancestors killed a lot of Native Americans. This is like my redemption. Our faces oh. Story 41 asked her what the difference between hardware and software was. This was for a position of customer tech support for satellite internet. She described a mouse. Twice. I still hired her. She was nice and very attractive. After a month, she got the hang of it and was one of the best agents on the floor. Story 42. I had a candidate once describing herself with having the same characteristics as Einstein. She added in her cover letter that she has the same working personality as Einstein, meaning she's a natural analyst with a nonstop critical mind ECT. I guess her analytical skills did not help her. When applying to a position, she was far from having the required experience and knowledge. Story 43 at a job fair a few years back. Candidate, so what departments are currently hiring? Me at the moment, we have immediate openings in the sales department. Candidate, I see. What do they do in that department? Me, the combination of traditional sales as well as some business-to-business, lead generating, and media partnerships. Candidate, can you define sales for me? Me, it's selling our product to potential partners. Candidate, so what do you mean by selling? Me, like a definition. Candidate, I just want to know what a salesperson does exactly. Me, they close a deal, we provide the service, and the client pay us for it or possibly partner with us for a trade and cash combination. The salesperson gets a commission along with base salary. Candidate, okay. Is that what this department specializes in? Me, yes, sales department specializes in selling. Candidate, everyone in that department sells. Me, yes, candidate. So are you a part of that department? Me, no, I'm in human resources, I recruit. Candidate, so how would you even know what sales does if you're not part of that department? Me, part of my job requires me to know the function of every department. Candidate, so can I really trust that you're giving me the right information? Me, do you have any reason to doubt the information? Candidate, just be straight with me. What would I need to do if I get this sales position? Me, you would do sales. That's the main priority. Candidate, okay. Just one more question. Me, certainly. Candidate points at my coworker who has been talking to another candidate. If I get this job, do I get to work with her? Story 44. I was interviewing for a route sales position, and when we asked about prior experience, he went on to say that his dad owned a dog farm. He then clarified it as a puppy mill. Story 45. I once asked the person I was interviewing to tell me about a time he took a shortcut or bent the rules to get a job done. He told me, I took a shortcut through some yards to get away from the cops once. Story 46. While interviewing for an entry-level sales job with standard Monday to Friday 8 to 5 shift. So do we get holidays off? Me, our company holidays are Christmas, New Year's Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, and Thanksgiving. Do we get the really important ones off, though, like St. Patrick's Day? Me, sure, if it falls on a weekend, I got to get my drink on. He did not get hired. Story 47. Me, we work on set schedules Monday to Friday. The part-time offering will be bound within those times within 20 to 24 hours a week, depending on business needs. Then what's the minimum I can work? Me, expectation is 20 to 24 hours. So like, can I just work like 5 hours? Me again, expectation is 20 to 24. Does it have to be Monday to Friday? Can I like come in Saturday for just a couple hours? I'm just really doing this in between my long story about unpaid internship / lounge crashing someone's job unwelcome. Me, no. Expectation is set, and we can build a schedule for you within those days that meets the necessary hours. Then look, I feel like you're being really inflexible here, and I don't appreciate it. I could really get a job anywhere I want, but I thought it would be really cool to come work here. But if you're not going to help me out here, then I don't think I really want to be a part of this. Me, unfortunately, I don't think we have a position here that will work for you. So can I have the job? Me, no. Story 48. I'm just an employee, but our boss tells us all about the funny interviews, and this was the best. So I work for the university I go to, doing parking enforcement, and as you can imagine, we sometimes get confronted by angry students we ticket. So one of the routine interview questions for the job is, how do you respond to hostile or aggressive situations? So this guy being interviewed was a combat vet, and when he got asked that question, says with a complete straight face, well, when I was deployed and I had hostile situations, we ended up shooting people. Not exactly the answer they're looking for. Funny thing is, a little while later, he interviewed again and got hired. Story 49. Me, tell me about a mistake you made and how you handled it. Last month, I went to Florida for spring break. I got super wasted and spent all my money. When I got back, I couldn't make rent, so that's why I'm here. Story 50. This wasn't me, but a former boss of mine was interviewing prospective assistants once and had narrowed them down to like 10 people from a huge pool. One of boss' questions to the candidates at this stage was what aspect of the position they found most appealing. Keyword most. This one guy answered with a location. This was for a well-known company in a highly competitive industry. Boss was nearly speechless, and that guy was immediately off the list. Edit. Yes, location is an important factor for anyone considering a job. But the most appealing aspect of this specific role, like if you could give the same answer in an interview at the Starbucks across the street, you're not being specific enough. Story 51, if offered a job, you will need to pass a drug test. Well, you see, last weekend was my birthday, and I blew down. Know what I'm saying? I smoked so much, and I know all of that is still right. Rub stomach emphatically here. If you give me about a week, I can pass the drug test. No sweat. You would also need to pass a criminal check. Well, you see. Story 52, oh, kind of late to the party, but when I was hiring, I interviewed this girl who was 2,728. I was 24 at the time. I listed responsibilities that she would have to do at this job, and her response was, oh, I'm sure if you could do it, I can do it too. Story 53, the girl showed up 30 minutes early for the interview, and I apologized for not being available yet. As my lunch cover wasn't going to be here for another 30 minutes, I was just trying to be nice. People are early late for interviews all the time, and it makes them nervous. She seemed grumpy, so I assumed that might be her nervous face happens. An hour later, she still hadn't shown up, and I had to do. So I wound up dealing with other interviews while I waited and asked my lunch cover to keep an eye out for her. As my last interviewee left, my lunch cover snuck into the back room looking really anxious, so I asked if she was okay. That girl is back for her interview. She was so rude. What did she do? Turns out the girl stomped and looking ready for a fight. She gave my lunch staff the evils and said, is that girl here? She's supposed to be interviewing me. She's late, and proceeded to glare until my lunch staff came to get me. When I heard how rude she was, I stomped out of the back room, lunch staff in tow, and made a beeline toward the girl. My plan was to tell her to off and find someone whole hire a loser with an attitude like hers. But I didn't get my chance. She took one look at us and scooted, never came back. Don't know what kind of stick she had up her, but it must have hurt. Anything you want to add? Yeah, I don't drink myself so far. So good, and I can't stand drunk people. Idiot. Applying as a bartender at a nightclub. Story 54. I remember the first interview I ever did alone while I was a supervisor. Normally, my manager and I would tag team on them. This was for a front desk position at a pretty swanky hotel. The guy walked in wearing Gocho pants, rainbow bright knee-high socks, and some weird ruffle top. He was like a weird pirate. I explained the job to him and how it involved manually entering room reservations, talking with guests on the phone, and our expectations on guest interactions. I asked what tasks he didn't like doing at work, data entry. It didn't get any better. The same day, there was a younger girl who told me she was living on a farm with her boyfriend's family. I asked what kind of farm. She then pulled out her phone and proceeded to show me pictures of goats for 10 minutes. Not gonna lie, I was pretty excited about them, but you don't do that during an interview. Story 55, me, you're applying for an early morning shift. Is that okay? Then yeah, I worked those hours at my last job, and I loved it. Because it was so slow, I did get myself a cup of coffee, prop my feet up, and relax until everyone else came in me. Okay, then this was literally the second sentence I heard this man say. Story 56, I was doing, screenings more than interviews really by phone, but I'm answering anyway. The position was contract and required using your own vehicle, being able to transport up to 60 boxes of produce. That was specifically highlighted in bold on the job posting. That transporting large amounts of produce was like 75 of this job. I had 4 different people that didn't have vehicles. Their reasons for still applying anyway for the job. I'm a smart worker. They'll figure something out. Like there's cab companies that have vans and stuff. My boyfriend has a Saturn. They hold a lot. You always see requirements on jobs that are higher than what is really needed for the job, like you're trying to keep certain people from applying, but I'm deserving of this job. I'd be great at the job if someone else could haul the produce. I've had too many DUIs and can't drive anymore. Story 57, I'm a software engineering manager. I always ask candidates to send me a couple of available code samples if they have them. This one candidate sent me a code sample that was an exact, completely identical open source project that I am the maintainer of. I thought this was so funny, I decided to bring him in for an in-person interview. After a moment, I confronted him and said I think he had just copied an open source project and sent it in as a code sample. He said, oh no, I'm the maintainer of that project. It's mine. I wrote every line and I have worked on it for years. Then I broke it to him that I am the maintainer and that this was my and other contributors' code. He looked right at me and said, you stole it from me. Needless to say, I declined to give him an offer.